So finally, after waiting several months, WrestleMania XL, WrestleMania 40 Behind the Curtain has dropped. It's a free documentary on YouTube. You can go watch it today. I'm going to give you my thoughts and my rundown on this documentary. Remember, this was supposed to come out the week after WrestleMania 40, that Wednesday, and then it just never did. I remember waiting on Peacock every few hours, checking, and then checking on YouTube, and there was just nothing. I didn't even know what was going on. And then we found out it got postponed. So this is it. This is the documentary. It's 1 hour long. I want to tell you what this is. It's basically supposed to be the behind the scenes story of how WrestleMania shaped up and how the road to WrestleMania this year changed. Now, when I say behind the scenes story, I'm talking about specifically Cody Rhodes, The Rock, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins. Those four wrestlers, along with Triple H, Bruce Pritchard, Nick Khan, and the other executives, they're kind of the main characters of this story. This does not go into CM Punk and Drew McIntyre or anything else that was built up for WrestleMania, like the Becky Lynch thing. It's not a documentary about the entire event, just the story of how the main event changed. CM Punk is mentioned by Triple H as far as what Seth's opponent was supposed to be, but remember, Punk got hurt. However, the CM Punk, from what I understand, there's going to be another CM Punk documentary coming out. I don't know when, covering his return last year and kind of what's happened going into the Drew McIntyre match, whenever that is. So, and maybe after that. So there will be a documentary about all of that at some point. So that's going to get its own thing. This is just about the main event story. And the story here is, there wasn't really much here that we didn't already know if you weren't paying attention and looking up the information and looking at online sources. Most of what's in here did come out publicly. Most of what's in here was pieced together by people, including myself. And hell, I told you guys for a long time that Roman Reigns Cody was booked for WrestleMania 40, and it was. And then along comes The Rock and the match they wanted to have with The Rock and Roman, which was supposed to happen at multiple WrestleManias, and it's still not going to happen at WrestleMania 40, but they wanted it to, and they changed over to that, which was, of course, a big mistake. Now, the documentary, here's the thing about this documentary, okay? During the time that this was all going on, there were a lot of different reports, and I know that somebody who I trust told me that Cody and Roman is still closing the show. Now, and even though they had already put The Rock in, they kept saying, no, it's still going to be Cody and Roman. Very confusing. So that what I'm saying by that is, historically, WWE documentaries sometimes aren't 100% honest with you. I'm not saying this one isn't, but there are weird things about this that are, even if it's 100% factual, it's still a very interesting story. And it pretty much just kind of recaps this build-up, going back to last year, how they really pushed Cody hard, and, Roman being the tribal chief and having that legendary title reign, and it all builds up to when Rock came in and said, hey, let's do the match. But then there was backlash, of course, and the fans didn't like it. And they cover pretty much every major bit of the story. They talk about the the Las Vegas show, where that's when they officially, I guess, kind of turned The Rock heel. Like, that's when The Rock turned heel on that show, that live presentation show, when Cody and Seth interrupted and sort of really brought the edginess back to WWE. The Rock himself says that when he saw the reaction from the fans, that he chose to pivot and he doesn't want fans to not get what they want. As far as the fans hating him, he's acceptable of that. In fact, he leaned into it and came out with the Final Boss, which is a new, evolved version of The Rock that we had never seen before. In fact, the Final Boss Rock, depending on how this story goes, might end up being my favorite version. I think my favorites were Corporate Rock, Hollywood Rock, but this Rock is right up there, and it combines aspects of both of those versions of The Rock. And notice that all of those versions are heel versions. I think The Rock is better as a heel. Clearly, Dwayne has more fun doing it, and that shows. The one thing that people had been suspicious about and people had been wondering about going into this documentary is what was going to get revealed about Cody's reaction to all of this. Well, the revelation was that going into the Royal Rumble, he already knew that they changed the match. Basically, and this had been reported, I don't remember if it was Fightful or The Observer, but they reported that when Cody won the Royal Rumble, he was supposed to point to Seth Rollins, and instead he pointed to Roman Reigns. And that changed things. Because him pointing to Roman was him going into business for himself. He was not supposed to do that. It was almost like he was defiantly going against the WWE's wishes and The Rock's. Now, while that could lead to maybe something, I don't know where it's going to lead. Like, I don't know if Cody's going to get quote unquote in trouble for it, but The Rock certainly agreed with at least the fact that maybe the time for the Roman Rock match wasn't coming. So, you know, it's interesting that Cody went into business for himself because it paid off. He took a gamble and it really paid off. The other big revelation from this documentary that I was not expecting to hear is that The Rock said that the Roman Rock match they were going to do at WrestleMania 40 was just one chapter, the first chapter of a story. Now that tells me that they had planned to do multiple Rock Roman matches. That means that Rock and Roman were probably going to headline multiple WrestleManias or other big shows. Probably WrestleMania, maybe a Saudi show if they want to. Now, that's interesting because now with that in mind, depending on how healthy The Rock stays and Roman, and depending on where things go in the next few years, right now I believe Cody and Rock is booked for WrestleMania next year. It may happen sooner, but I believe it's booked for WrestleMania next year, WrestleMania 41. So that would mean that Rock and Roman could happen at the earliest at WrestleMania 42. Now, if that's chapter 1, this story might not even end till WrestleMania 43 or even 44. And I do wonder if some of those ideas they're going to incorporate, because the thing is things have changed. Because originally when Rock stepped up against Roman, Rock was going to be the babyface, Roman was going to be the super heel. But things have changed because now Solo's taking control of the bloodline and Roman is going to come back as a massive babyface. So does that mean that Roman will be on the babyface side against The Rock whenever that match happens? We got a couple years to go for that. And I will say, I like the editing of the documentary. It was an easy watch. It was only an hour long. And if you have some time, watch it and recap how awesome it was during that time period. And if you don't want to watch it now, that's okay. I don't know if they're going to take it down anytime soon. It's not an emergency thing, but it's only an hour long. So it really does dig behind the scenes. It even shows like how The Rock changed his music, his entrance, how him, Triple H, Roman, and Paul Heyman kind of came up with some modifications to the character. I wanted more of that, to be honest with you, but what we got was cool. It was cool. So, yeah, overall, it's a fine documentary. It seems pretty truthful. It goes into Cody's life and The Rock and Roman's and gave us some good stuff. I cannot say it's bad at all. It's only an hour, so I would check it out, especially since, you know, it's an interesting look at how sometimes plans can change. They legitimately can, and how the voice of the fans matters to the company, which for many years they claimed it did, but Vince McMahon never listened to the fans. Well, I can't say never, but a lot of times did not listen to the fans. He listened more than other promoters, but a lot of times he did not. But it seems like Triple H, Bruce Pritchard, Nick Khan are more open to hearing what the crowd tells them. So, great documentary. Check it out. Those are my thoughts.